Welcome to Your Need to Know. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, and today we're going to be talking about female genital mutilation, which is not a topic you often hear discussed in this country because we feel like it's something that happens somewhere else. But the truth is that the numbers in this country are astronomical for the number of young girls who are being put through this process here in our own country, and the fact that it is not considered a crime. Joining me to talk about this is Angela Peabody. She is the CEO and founder of Global Women Peace Foundation. Thank you so much for joining me, Angela.
Thank you for having me.
So until you came to my Rotary Club and talked about this, I can tell you I had no idea that this was happening in this country, and more to the point that Virginia has one of the highest numbers of affected girls in this state. And so this is a subject we need to be talking about. Tell us a little bit about how you came to do this work here.
Well, I developed zero tolerance for anything to do with violence against women when my younger sister, was killed by her husband in West Africa. And I decided to do this work when I started meeting other people, other women who had undergone FGM, female genital mutilation cutting, and I wanted to stop it. I wanted it to stop because I heard so many stories, so many different stories about it, and talked to women who had undergone it, and originally being born and grew up in a practicing country, which is Liberia, West Africa. I felt so fortunate that my sisters and I were spared because our parents didn't practice it.
And so a lot of people believe that this is something that happens someplace else. That is the biggest shock for me, is that this is a problem in this country. I think people in this country believe these terrible things only happen someplace else. But your point is about how people bring their customs with them.
Yes. Being an immigrant myself, as I mentioned at the Rotary Club, I know that I will drive all the way when I couldn't find food, the traditional food, in Centerville where I live. I would drive all the way to Alexandria where they had an African market to get those foods. So I know what the traditions and cultures mean to immigrants when they come here. And we bring our cultures with us, the clothes, the food, the dance, the music, so the language. So if you are from that society that practices female genital mutilation, why wouldn't you bring it? And that has been my argument and contention for years to people here. If we have immigrants here, I assure you it is being done here. And nobody believed it.
It was not even on my radar. But I think to the point of separating out what is a custom, or even saying it's part of your religious practice, and looking at this as a crime, part of violence against women, this is where I think the United States is not having the right conversation about what this is. Clearly, there are not laws in every state that prosecute this as a crime. So I think there's 23 states?
24 states, and with the law, the governor just signed the bill to pass it in Virginia. The law goes into effect officially in Virginia on July 1st. Virginia will become the 25th state in the U.S.
So I think you mentioned that Senator Dick Black was the sponsoring legislator for this, and that he got the bill passed, but not exactly the bill he wanted.
Yes.
Because I think right now it's a misdemeanor, and I think he wanted it to be a felony.
A felony, yes.
A felony. So he's going to go back and try that next session.
Yes.
This is one of the reasons that I wanted to discuss this now, is that I believe that women in the Commonwealth of Virginia need to understand that it is a more pervasive problem than they believe. In fact, Virginia has one of the highest numbers, along with Minnesota, California, and Texas, of girls affected by this. And the fact that it's not on our radar, that it's not a prosecuted crime.
Yes.
That is the problem that needs to be solved. Recently in Michigan, there was a little bit of movement because the FBI got involved. Explain to us how that happened.
Well, there were two doctors, and one of the doctors, his wife, they were practicing it at their clinic in Michigan, I guess a suburb of Detroit. And they did that. They had the audacity to do that in the state of Michigan, because Michigan is one of those states that have not put forth a law in place against FGM. So they felt comfortable doing it, and they had mothers coming from as far as Minnesota and other surrounding areas, surrounding states, and bringing their girls to that clinic to have it done. Somebody just took notice of the unusual activity going on and the traffic and decided to blow the whistle. And they put the clinic under surveillance, which the doctors didn't know, and the FBI moved in. Coincidentally, I was in Seattle that very morning when they were making the arrests in Michigan. I was in Seattle speaking to a room full of people about FGM.
So what law was the FBI using, since it was not a criminal act in Michigan and this was a federal agency that got involved? Under what law are they going to be prosecuted?
The federal law. The federal law went into place in the US in 1996. And a lot of people don't realize, including the people who practice it here, they don't realize that there's a federal law. So if they think that, well, the state I live in doesn't have a law, so I'm good, I'm safe doing it here, they need to think about it again, because the federal law is going to take effect in every state, all 50 states. And that's how the FBI was able to go and make the arrest in Michigan.
So you and I have talked about the importance of educating people to this, and because it's not just the families that practice this, but their children who are born here are in our public school system with lots of children from lots of diverse backgrounds who are not familiar with this. So this touches the lives of children, particularly little girls who may end up with a friend who is the victim of this. How can we better introduce this as a subject in our public school systems?
Easily. We just need to get the Department of Education in each school district to include that into the curriculum. That's what we need. And there are enough experts, enough of the advocates like myself in the area that will be happy to come in and train teachers and school nurses and school counselors how to approach this and how to work with the little girls who are at risk or who have already undergone it.
Yeah, and that's, I guess, what shocks me too, is that there's a lot of victims of this in Virginia now who have already been victimized by this process, but every single day, and we're talking about little girls, 7, 8, 9 years old. I mean, under any other circumstances, this would be a crime.
Yes.
It just astonishes me still that in any way that this could be happening every day. I think the family life education curriculum, speaking for Fairfax County, Delegate Eileen Fillercorn has had other types of curricula or content to the curricula added, like addressing things like consent. It seems to me that this is one of those things where children need age-appropriate lessons on something that could affect not just them, but someone they know. So I'm very optimistic that this is a path forward. But where can people, so let's say somebody has concerns about a child that they think is at risk, what would be the appropriate thing to do if it's your neighbor or it's somebody, your child's friend? What would you do?
Contact they're welcome to contact my organization.
Okay.
We work closely with the Department of Justice. So if they don't feel comfortable going directly to the law, then they can contact my organization, and we will put them in touch with the appropriate lawmakers.
And so I guess this really comes down to having Department of Justice intervene, and this is a highly unusual circumstance because this is a family. This is not a child who's being victimized by a stranger. There are parental rights involved. How does that work when a parent says, but it's my child and I have parental rights?
Yes, but the law is in place that in as much as, and I want people to understand that female genital mutilation, yes, it is done by the parents or the close family members. However, what about molestation?
Right, that's what I don't understand.
Sometimes
too.
it's done by family members, and they go in and arrest the family
that's a crime.
members.
That is clearly a crime.
It's child abuse. They go in and arrest the family members, or they remove the child from the home. The UN and the United States have declared that female genital mutilation is indeed child abuse, a form of child abuse. So let's treat it in that manner. And that is the problem, because I think people are so busy concerned about the parents. It's the parents, it's family. It is a crime. It has been made and declared a crime. So let's treat it like a crime, because we need to be concerned about those little girls.
And so is the age range about right? Are we talking about 7 to 10 about?
It can be done as early as infancy.
Oh my goodness.
And from infancy all the way to 15.
Wow.
Yes, but the most popular ages are between 7 to 10.
And I would assume too that as the older a child gets, the more they are likely to resist or self-advocate or seek help.
Exactly. I'm glad you mentioned that, because it is the reason why parents are now doing it much earlier, because they figure the child is not going to resist. She's not going to remember what happened to her. See, these survivors, especially most of the ones I work with, it was done to them at 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. They remember their story and they can come and tell their story. But if it was done at toddler age or infancy, they're not going to be able to remember.
And I'm glad you mentioned survivors, because in the next segment we are going to talk to a survivor of female genital mutilation. So please join us after this break.
One day these rats were playing in the woods. Wanted some matches and that's no good. Yeah. Listen to smoke before you give it a try.
Only you.
Don't play with matches. Don't play with fire. Cause there's nothing very funny about nothing very nice. So if a gorgeous force is what you desire, don't play with matches, don't play with fire. Yeah.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Fire!
Why don't you just wash your car at home?
When I wash my car, everything runs down the street and down into the storm drains. With all the chemicals in the soaps and waxes, the last thing I want to do is poison my own drinking water. At least here, it's all contained and recycled on site. That's why I also take my car in for oil changes instead of doing it myself. I might take a chance on spilling stuff. You know what the best part is?
What?
More time to kick back and watch the game.
How can I help my daughter with her reading?
Searching for help with Dachshund Reading.
Why do you not get me?
I do. This is what it feels like for kids with learning and attention issues. Redirecting to understood.org.
Join parents and experts at understood.org, a free online resource about learning and attention issues to help your child thrive.
Welcome back to Your Need to Know. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, and today we are talking about a subject known to very few of us called female genital mutilation. You might think that this happens only in foreign countries, but in fact it's happening here in the United States, and more specifically here in Virginia. Joining me in this segment is Angela Peabody, who is the founder of Global Woman Peace Foundation. And also joining us is a survivor of FGM, Aisha. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you for having us.
So, Aisha, you were born in this country.
Born in Washington, D.C.
Washington, D.C. You are a survivor of this procedure.
Yes, female genital mutilation.
And so, explain to us how this unfolded. What is the story that the rest of us are obviously missing?
The thing about FGM is, especially in this part of town that we're in Virginia, it is a very diverse state. Washington, D.C. is right there. We are very diverse, you know, and culture, you can take someone out of their country, but you can't take their culture out of them. You know what I mean? In America, we're so diverse. If we're thinking this is not happening in this country, we're still sleeping. It happened to me, and I was born in Washington, D.C.
So was it your parents who felt strongly that this is something that was, you know, ingrained as part of their culture or their belief system?
It's not necessarily my parents. It's part of their culture, but my parents, with this part, they wasn't in the picture. I was actually sent to my grandmother, whom I dear love so much, I know. And it happened to me at the age of 9 while I was there. You know what I mean? I feel like with FGM, we desperately need education. Much like yourself, you had no idea what was going on. I feel like we need to educate, raise a lot of awareness, because even the family themselves that does it to you, they don't know any better, is how I look at it. I love my grandmother more than anything in this world. She is the most kindest woman I've ever known. But because of culture, she was only doing what was right for me. As in Africa, a lot of women are being cut for the sake of a man, to be more meritable, to be more, like, you know what I mean? You're more, I don't know how to usually say it. You become more pricey, so to speak, valuable when you get your clitoris cut. You know what I mean?
And that's hard for us to understand. That is not part of the culture here.
It's not. And it's not even for the ones in culture in Africa. It's not. It actually damages you. It damages you emotionally and sometimes your self-esteem. There's so much that goes on to it that actually cause a lot more harm than they do good. No good at all. I'm a mother. I have 2 children, and each pregnancy was very difficult because, like, I go through so much different things. And I remember the first time I went to the doctor, I felt like an object because the doctor don't even know what it was.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, oh my God, she needs care. She needs medical care. What do I do? You know, I felt like an object because now I know it was just students, but then I didn't. You know what I mean? He called a couple of friends or
like, what am I looking at? I don't understand.
Yes.
Like, what am I looking at? I don't understand.
And it was really hard for me, considering then I was pregnant. I myself didn't quite understood exactly what was going on with me because it was done at such a young age to me. It was done when I was 9.
Right, and so you were, you know, to me, this is flat out torture. You were a victim of violence against women, you know? And you had adults in your life who were telling you this was normal.
Yes.
But you know, so we were talking, Angela and I were talking earlier about this doesn't just affect you, it affects the people in your life,
everyone
the friends
around
that
me.
the friends that you have. You said you lost a friend to this.
Yes, I did. I'm sorry. It gets really touchy when I talk about that. I lost my friend, a very close friend of mine, when I was in Sierra Leone. Her name was Saleh. And Saleh used to be the next door neighbor where I always, you know what I mean? I'm sorry.
That's okay, take a minute.
This was even before it was done to me. I was much younger. I didn't really understand what it was. But she went away. Her parents took her away. It was done to her, and I never seen her again. And I'm 31. It still affected me. You know what I mean?
It's traumatizing. It is a trauma, like PTSD, the worst kind, because you're doing it to a child.
I'm crying from the TV.
So, Angela, you know, talk about the fact that this has now become something where parents understand the pressure, the cultural pressure in this country not to do it, and so this has become something where they're taking them not just across state lines, but out of the country. Much like Aisha, she was sent home to her grandmother.
Yes. That's where vacation cutting comes in. They term it vacation cutting because the parents take the girls out of the US or out of a country in Europe and take them to their country of origin and have it done to them. In Aisha's case, her parents were here and they sent her to the grandmother, trusting the grandmother, and the grandmother had it done to her at 9 years old. But these little girls are here in the US and they remove them and take them to another country to have it done. So in 2013, the law was passed, the federal law was passed again. The original federal law was passed in 1996. And then in 2013, President Obama had the law passed for that against vacation cutting. Because before there was no law, you could take your child out of the country, have it done to her, bring her back, and there was no law against it. So in 2013, the law was passed federally that if you remove a child from the United States and take her to another country with the intention of having her mutilated, you will, when you get back, you will bear the penalties. So
do you have a sense that those cases are actually prosecuted? I mean, how often do they actually successfully prosecute a case like that?
Very rare. Talking to the Department of Justice, they have only had a few cases. They had one in California, which is one of the states on the map. They've had one in Atlanta, where an Ethiopian father took the unsterilized scissors himself and clipped his 3-year-old daughter. They've had, I think, one in New York, one in Minnesota. They have not been that many cases in the US, but it doesn't mean, and I always stress that, it doesn't mean that it's not happening. It could be happening every day. And like I told you at the Rotary Club, you could be gone are the days when immigrants came to this country destitute. Immigrants come here with money to be able to afford to buy a mansion next door to you. And they could be practicing it right in the basement next door to you and you would never know. Even if you heard the girl scream and you didn't know anything about female genital mutilation, there's no way you would suspect that they are cutting off her genitals in the basement to call the police.
I mean, this is crazy. I do think it's an educational issue. Going forward, having survived this, you are a mother now.
Yes.
What is it that you want your children to understand and their friends to understand about being aware of this, being advocates for themselves, being advocates for their friends, about the autonomy of little girls' bodies, even when their parents are telling them that they have a right to do it? You know, if you could wave a magic wand, what would that look like as far as education?
As far as education, with my little girls, I want, well, not just with my little girls, I want every little girl out there that's watching me, that's seeing this, to know that their anatomy, the way God makes them, nothing is absolutely wrong with it at all, you know what I mean? And also when you find out or know that you have a friend that's gone through this, don't make them feel like they're an object. You know what I mean? Talk to them. My goal now with my little children, Miss Angela had Global Women Peace Foundation had a walk back in October. I was one of their speakers. I actually took them there with me. You know, everything that I do in terms of female genital mutilation, I involve them. I talk to them, you know what I mean? Like, because it's all about awareness. I didn't know this. So now I'm in the process of educating them to know what it is. I mean, with the child level of understanding, of course.
Age-appropriate
of course, information. And I talk to them, and you know what I mean? For them to know this is what happened, and this is what we can do to move forward. And mommy's going to make sure in her power it doesn't happen to you. And hopefully, she's gonna work till a lot more other kids are safe, hopefully. That's what we can hope for.
So is part of this too reaching into the communities, particularly here in Virginia?
Yes.
Reaching into the communities to help shape a different perspective. How do we do that?
Awareness. Awareness, awareness, awareness.
Education. It has to be in the schools. We have to let our next door neighbors, whenever I go out and I speak on this topic, I urge everyone in the audience to please take this information that you learned today here, take it out there, share it with at least one person, and if that person shares it with another person, that's how it gets out, word of mouth. But we need to really raise more awareness, and I really appreciate you bringing us on your show to talk about it today, because this is going to help. Everybody who watches your show is going to find out that this thing is really happening right here in our Commonwealth of Virginia.
I know.
Happening.
And I think about the Women's March that took place in D.C., where all those women came, and all of them are invested in seeing better outcomes for women in this country and around the world. And I bet you less than 5% of them had any idea that one of the things they needed to be marching for was protecting girls from female genital mutilation. It's not on their radar to say that there are young girls that need our protection. And it's been an eye-opener for me. I can't tell you how profoundly I've been affected by the fact that this could be happening here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and I don't even know that I should be protecting these young girls.
What I would like to see are billboards put up. I was driving once from Southern Virginia on the way back to Centerville, and I saw a billboard about human trafficking, and I smiled. I was pleased to see that, and I said, I would like to see more billboards put up about female genital mutilation. That's how people will read it. Bumper stickers on cars, in traffic, I read bumper stickers. So whatever methods we can put forth to get people.
I agree, because the key here is that it's in our community.
How can you do better if you don't know better?
Right, how can you do better if you don't know better? But wake up and open your eyes, look around and realize that you are among people who have been victimized or potentially could be victims. And if we're not, as women, doing something to protect our fellow women, we're not doing enough.
No, not at all.
Well, thank you, ladies, both of you, for being here today to talk about this. This is the information that you